The first technique I'm going to go over is called a coronal brow lift. Not a corona, coronal brow lift. So the coronal brow lift is probably the most historical one, not super commonly used, but still surgeons should be able to know how to do all of the brow lift approaches. So the coronal brow lift is probably the biggest dissection out of all the brow lifts we're going to be talking about. Your incision is going to be in the hairline here. That's why it's called a coronal brow lift. And it's going to give us our widest exposure from all the different types of brow lifts. But the dissection is definitely more morbid than the other procedures that we'll talk about in later videos. So why would someone do a coronal brow lift? So coronal brow lift is good if you need to lift the brows, and obviously, but also if you have, let's say, like a short forehead with a lot of creases and a really low lying hairline, and you want to get that hairline up, putting the incision here, aka coronal brow lift, could help you A, lift the brows, but then B, also raise your hairline. So if you're somebody who already has a large forehead or a high hairline to begin with, this is definitely not the approach for you. And that's what we determine based on your anatomy in the consult. But let's say you're someone with low brows because you've aged and a lot of forehead creases and a really, really short forehead with a low lying hairline. We could consider a coronal because, again, the incision's here and that's going to be lifting your hairline up while we lift the brows up as well. Something to note for coronal brow lifts also, though, because of that, a lot of dissection, because of the plane of dissection that it's in, you do have a risk of numbness afterwards, and it is an incision in the hairline too, which we could discuss more during your visit. But again, things to note during to determine whether or not you're a candidate for a coronal brow lift.